Hello everyone and welcome back to 27 Fox Place. Today I'm going to stock up our fridge and prep a few healthy whole food ingredients so that I can cut back on the time that I spend in the kitchen during the week. We try to stick to a whole foods diet with plenty of fresh fruit and veggies, so each week I need to spend about an hour or so washing and chopping produce for the week, and I'll also try to cook up a few meals or ingredients that can save time during the week. Prepping all the fruits and veggies is usually the biggest part of food prep, so I usually like to start by washing the produce, and that means I need to start with a squeaky clean sink. We try to buy organic produce when we can find it, but even organic produce needs to be washed, so I like to fill the sink with water and a few tablespoons of baking soda to help remove any dirt or chemical residue on the produce. And then I just add the produce to the baking soda bath and let it soak for a minute while I get started on something else. Today I'm making sweet potato toast. It's one of my favorite go-to breakfast ingredients, but to cut back on time, I like to make a big batch of toast in advance and store it in the freezer. I like to sort through the bag and pick out sweet potatoes that are short and fat so that I get large slices that can hold more toppings. Before I get started, I need to spray a baking sheet with oil, and I'm just using avocado oil today to keep the potato slices from sticking to the pan, but you could also use parchment paper instead. To make the toast, I need to cut the sweet potato into 1/4-inch slices, and I like to slice the potatoes long ways so that I get bigger pieces, but you could also cut them into medallions. I'm starting off with sweet potato toast because it will take the longest to cook, and I can work on preparing the rest of the produce while it's in the oven. This toast is a great alternative to breads made with wheat flour or gluten-free alternatives. You can top this toast with any type of spread from nut butters to cream cheese, and you can use your favorite combination of fruits and nuts, but my favorite way to top sweet potato toast is with mashed avocado and eggs. Before I put the slices in the oven, I want to coat them with a little oil to keep them from drying out, and today I'm going to season them with a little salt and pepper, but they're so full of flavor they really don't need any extra seasoning. I've already preheated the oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. The slices need to bake for about 20 to 30 minutes depending on how thick they are, so I'll set a timer and check on them in 20 minutes. Strawberries are my favorite fruit to have on hand. They are great to slice up to add to salads, on top of chia pudding, or just by themselves. But if they're not washed and chopped ahead of time, I'm more likely to pass them up for something easier. Normally, I just remove the stems and cut the strawberries in half, but the giant-sized strawberries in this batch were 2 to 3 times of the normal-sized strawberry, so I needed to chop them up a few more times to get them into bite-sized pieces. I have a few go-to recipes that I make every week, and almost all of them use bell peppers. I use them in things like stir-fry, sheet pan dinners, fajitas, soups, and chilies. The ingredients for all of these meals may vary each time, but they always have bell peppers. So I like to chop them up in two different ways, just for a little variety. I like to slice them into strips for things like fajitas, and for things like stir-fries, I chop them into squares. Prepping ingredients instead of meals gives me a lot more flexibility. So if I'm not in the mood for chicken stir fry, I can have shrimp instead. Or if I'm not in the mood for stir fry, I can make a sheet pan dinner, or I can swap taco night for grilled chicken. Because I have so many go-to meals, I don't need to spend a lot of time planning our meals. And we get more variety because I can mix up the ingredients. It's time to pull the toast out of the oven, but I'll need to let it cool down before I can put it away. The sweet potato toast is done when it's soft and golden brown and starting to caramelize, and I like to reheat mine in the toaster oven, but you could use a toaster or you could also pop it in the microwave for a few seconds. Then you can top the slices with your favorite ingredients, and my go-to toppings are mashed avocado and fried eggs. Potatoes, carrots, and onions are staples that we always have because they last several weeks, so we always have some in the fridge to go with meals. I always try to have plenty of green veggies to go with them, and this week we have Brussels sprouts and broccoli as our two main veggies. Brussels sprouts are one of my favorite veggies for sheet pan dinners because once they've been washed and chopped, all I need to do is spread them out on a pan and roast them in the oven. They take about 20 minutes to cook, so I can roast them alone or with any combination of potatoes, carrots, peppers, and onions. I have the same green smoothie almost every day, and because this smoothie recipe has lots of ingredients, Smoothie Prep is my biggest time saver for the week because instead of pulling out all of the ingredients and measuring them out one by one every day, I can measure out and chop up all the ingredients at the same time and store them together in individual servings so that all I have to do is dump them in a blender. I give all of the ingredients a rough chop before I freeze them because chopping them up into 1 or 2 inch pieces will help them blend up faster once they're frozen. I like to freeze the cucumber and celery because they both have a high water content, so they make a great substitute for ice cubes. Of course, things like cucumber and celery don't freeze well, so once they're frozen, you can't defrost them to use in salads, but you can freeze almost anything to use in smoothies because you don't need to defrost the ingredients. I like to add frozen pineapple to this smoothie, but if you wanted to cut back on the carbs, you could always substitute avocado. But pineapple is anti-inflammatory and it adds lots of flavor. You could use fresh or canned pineapple, but I'm using frozen pineapple that's already been chopped to save a little time. Ginger is the last ingredient that I need to add to this smoothie pack. I like to store minced ginger in the freezer, and if you'd like to see how I do that, I'll be sure to add a link in the description box. I add about a tablespoon of minced ginger, or about a thumb-sized piece of whole ginger. I'm using frozen minced ginger because that's what I have, but you could also add a whole piece of fresh ginger root instead. I like to use quart-sized freezer bags because they're the perfect size for these smoothie packs, but to cut back on plastic, I like to reuse the same Ziploc bags every week. So once the bag is empty, I just rinse it out and store it in the freezer. The second part of this smoothie prep is the greens. I'll use a total of 4 ounces of greens, or about 4 cups, and I like to use half spinach and half kale, but you could also use any other blend of greens that you prefer. I like to use a scale because it's easier to measure out and I can be sure that I'm getting 4 ounces. Leafy greens like kale and spinach can be frozen for smoothies, but I like to store the greens separately for a few reasons. The biggest reason is that it's much harder to blend up the smoothie if all the ingredients are frozen, but I also like to have the packs in the fridge because I can also use them to make salads or some other meal, and it does help motivate me to use up the fresh ingredients if they're in the fridge. We get most of our produce from Costco, and we pick up anything that we can't get at the grocery store. We went to the grocery store earlier this week and I've already prepped the kale, so all I need to do now is divide it up. Over the years, I've been phasing out plastic storage containers for more healthy, eco-friendly options like glass and silicone. So I've been slowly adding to my collection of silicone bags. Reusable silicone bags are a great alternative to disposable bags, and they're perfect for things like produce and short-term freezer storage. The last part of this smoothie is the dry ingredients. I measure out single servings of collagen, flaxseed, hemp seed, and bee pollen, and I store them in the pantry. I just got distracted this time and forgot the hemp seed. I also like to add matcha powder to this smoothie, but I also use these same ingredients in just about every smoothie recipe. So I've left it out to make the mix more flexible. That way I can add additional supplements for a different smoothie if I need to. When I'm ready to make a smoothie, all I need to do is dump all the ingredients into the blender and blend it on high until everything is smooth and creamy. This recipe makes about 4 cups. It's less than 500 calories and it has the recommended daily amount of fruits and veggies in a single serving. Sweet potato toast will last about a week in the fridge and about 2 to 3 months in the freezer, but I don't want the slices to stick together when they freeze, so I need to spread them out on a cookie sheet and I'll freeze them before I transfer them to a freezer-safe bag. Next, I need some protein to go with this week's veggies, and I'm starting out with my go-to marinade for chicken thighs. I don't have any measurements for this marinade. I use the trusty method of that looks about right. And today I'm using the juice from about a half a lemon and a few cloves of minced garlic. I've already minced and frozen the garlic, so I just need to pop a piece into the mix. There's no need to defrost the garlic. It will start to warm up and break apart in the marinade. I like to add a few pinches of red pepper flakes for a little heat and about a teaspoon of Italian seasoning along with a little salt and pepper. I only need enough oil to coat all the chicken thighs, so I'm adding about a quarter cup of olive oil to the mix. The longer the chicken sits in the marinade, the better, so I like to let the chicken sit overnight before I cook it. Roast chicken is also on the menu this week. I'm going to use the same ingredients for this marinade, but instead of lemon juice, I'm adding about a quarter cup of white wine. You could use beer instead of wine. All of the alcohol evaporates during the cooking process, but it adds a nice flavor to the chicken. I don't have a container big enough to hold a whole chicken, so I'm just using a Ziploc bag, and I'll pour the marinade all over the chicken and leave it in the fridge overnight. The theme this week seems to be chicken, but to mix it up a little bit, I'm going to mix up a chicken stir-fry marinade. I like to mix up a sauce from scratch, but you could also use your favorite stir-fry sauce. I don't have a recipe for this stir-fry sauce either. I don't measure, I just combine a few basic ingredients, and I always start with about a tablespoon of minced ginger, a few cloves of minced garlic, and about a quarter cup of coconut aminos, and then I go from there. To thicken up the sauce, I use a few teaspoons of arrowroot powder. And I like to mix up the sauce a few days in advance and keep it in the fridge so that it's ready to go. Next, I'm going to slice up the chicken for the stir fry. I'm using chicken breast, but you could use beef, shrimp, pork, or just skip the meat altogether. Today I'm slicing up the chicken in advance because I plan on cooking up this stir fry in the next few days. But if I don't plan on making stir fry right away, I'll wait and defrost the chicken a day before I need it. With so much of the stir fry prep out of the way, it only takes a few minutes to slice up the chicken when I'm ready to cook it. And it's one of those meals that cooks once and eats twice. So I always try to make extra stir fry so that we have something for lunch or dinner later in the week. Whenever I'm in the kitchen, I try to clean up as I go, but even more so when I'm prepping chicken, so before I do anything else, I need to wash up with soap and water to get rid of any of the bacteria from the chicken. Prepping fresh veggies is always the most time-consuming part of meal prep. So the more I can get done before the week starts, the easier it is to cook up a meal. So I'm a big fan of buying veggies that have been pre-washed and pre-chopped. That's why I almost always have a bag of broccoli in the fridge. It's not entirely necessary, but I like to divide up the broccoli into individual serving sizes because it helps keep track of what we need to use up during the week. I can use the broccoli in stir-fry, sheet pan meals, or just steamed on the side. And even though they've been pre-washed, I'll still give them a quick rinse before I cook them up. The last thing I need to do today is peel a few carrots. Carrots last several weeks in the fridge, so I always have carrots on hand. I like to use carrots in stir fry or roast them in the oven with Brussels sprouts, but carrots are one of those ingredients that I will only use as long as they've been prepped in advance. Otherwise, I tend to skip over them altogether. So I'm going to chop up a few carrots into smaller chunks so that I can roast them in the oven later this week, and then I'll slice up a few into strips to add to the stir fry. Prepping healthy ingredients ahead of time always makes mealtime so much easier during the week, but it can also help cut down on waste because it's easier to organize the fridge so that things don't get lost in the back. I like to give avocados a few days to ripen on the counter before I put them in the fridge. The cold temperatures slow down the ripening process so that they last longer, and that way I always have ripe avocados in the fridge. I grilled up the chicken thighs for lunch prep this week. I love the flavor of grilled chicken and it makes cleanup so much easier and faster, but I also bake them in the oven at about 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 to 20 minutes. I cook up a batch of rice, quinoa, and hard-boiled eggs every week. So this week I mixed in some black beans with the quinoa and I added some frozen green beans. Adding frozen veggies makes meal prep much easier because most frozen veggies are pre-cooked, so they'll finish cooking when the meal is reheated in the microwave. That's all for today. If you like this video, remember to give it a thumbs up and be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications before you go. And thank you so much for spending your time with me today, and I hope to see you next time.